Hello and welcome back to freephotoshop.com and what's going to be our very first look at Photoshop Elements 10 and more specifically one of its new features called Text on a Path. I have an image open in front of me called Moon Shape Text which demonstrates what we're going to be doing in this video fairly neatly. The moon and this elliptical shape on the outer edge are here for decoration. What we're interested in is the text that bends to the exact shape that the moon would follow had it not have been for the sun casting a shadow on the lower section down here. So in previous versions of Photoshop Elements, we've had no problem actually creating a block of text. What's new is the ability to bend it around outlines of a shape, or if we went one step further, its own path. So let's make a start by turning the top 3 layers on inside this file, revealing the photographer's name over the moon, the text of which, by the way, is on its own custom path. So this is another one of those effects that we can create with the tools I'm about to show you in this tutorial. Anyhow, the photographer goes by the handle Javetson, and you can download this image or many of his other works by going to flickr.com/photos/Javetson, which is stamped onto its own layer at the bottom of the image. And I highly recommend that you do that, by the way. He's got some really fine work on there and it's definitely worth a look. Okay, I'll hide those 3 layers by dragging over the eyeballs over here in the layers panel. Then I'm going to turn the rings of moon layer off also, and I'm going to drag the text layer Explore, Discover, Understand down to the bottom of the layers panel and release over the trash can icon so that we can delete it from the image. Now we're back to square one and we want to recreate the text exactly how we saw it. So the first thing we need to do is to come over to the toolbox and right click on the type tool icon, and we can do that by either right clicking as I've said or left clicking and holding if you don't have a right mouse button on your mouse. And we've got the standard horizontal and vertical type tools at the top. Then we've got the lesser used horizontal and vertical type mask tools, all 4 of which we had in previous versions of Elements, you may remember. The 3 additional options we have at the bottom are new to Photoshop Elements 10. So we've got the text on a selection tool, where we could add text that follows the shape of a selection outline. At the bottom we've got the text on a custom path tool, which allows us to add text that follows hand-drawn path outlines. And then finally we've got the text on a shape tool, which is what we're going to be looking at today. Now in theory we could have chosen any 3 of those tools to get the effect we want, but when we're dealing with a basic shape like a circle, we may as well go ahead and choose the shape tool. So once you've selected it, like I have right here, I'd like you to come up to the options bar and then right click on this little tiny arrow on the left side and choose Reset Tool so that we can both be sure that we're working with exactly the same settings. Now the first thing we need to do is actually draw the shape we want the text to follow. So it's a kind of 2-pronged attack, I guess you could say. Firstly drawing the shape and then adding text to it. So come up to the options bar and click the rectangle option and then proceed to select ellipse, just like so. Now we need to go ahead and draw the ellipse. So come over to the image, right up here in the top left corner I would say, somewhere about here. Then drag with the left mouse button pressed to the bottom right like so. Now while we're dragging, hold the space bar down and we can move the shape on the fly like so. We can move it around anywhere we want to, and we can really start to get an idea of where we want to go with this shape, because we're still drawing, remember, we're still in the drawing mode. Another tip, by the way, is to hold down the Shift key to ensure that the shape we're drawing is a perfect circle. So hold Shift and then we can do a bit of dragging, then use the spacebar to reposition, and you may need to mess around here a few times unless you get something that you want fairly rapidly. I'm going to just move that like so, something like this, and I'm happy with that. Once that's the case, release the mouse button and our shape should sit nicely in place. By the way, that was one smooth operation I carried out there. If you depress the left mouse button during any of that, then your best option would be to start again. And you can delete the shape, by the way, by simply pressing the delete key on the keyboard. So what we've done is created a path outline. We can now add text to follow the path wherever it may go. So hover the cursor above the path outline and we'll see our type tool icon appear, telling us that it's ready to insert text. We'll also see this little path icon striking across the type tool, informing us that we are about to add text to a path outline, which is exactly what we want to do. Now before we click, we'll want to change the color of the text by coming up to this swatch in the options bar and giving the arrow next to the swatch a click. Black text against a black background is never a good thing, so let's change it to white so it stands out pretty nicely, and then we'll press enter here on the PC or return over on the Mac to accept that color modification. Now just to the left side of where we want the text to go, click on the path and we get our blinking insertion cursor. Now let's go ahead and type in the text that we want to add, which in this case is going to be explore, comma, discover, comma, and understand. And that should do us quite nicely. There we are. Not quite what we were looking for, but let's see if we can change some of the formatting to make it appear exactly as we would like it on the image. If we come over to the layers panel, we'll see this new text layer representing the text we've just got done inserting, but whilst we're still in the text editing mode, let's hit Control or Command A on the keyboard to select all the text, then come up and change the font. And I'm going to find a font called Rage Italic, and you may not have that one on your system, so choose one that takes your fancy. Then I'll change the size to 48 points, like so. And finally, I want the color of the text to fit in with the shade of the moon. So I'll click the color swatch this time, and I'll make sure the color picker is out of the way, or the color picker dialog box, I should say. Then I'll drag the cursor, which is now an eyedropper, over the moon, and I'll lift a fairly bright shade from the left side of the moon, just like so. Something like that is absolutely perfect. When I'm happy, I'll click OK to accept the changes, and to confirm all of these changes, we'll click the green tick mark up here in the options bar. So we're nearly there, but we have two small problems. Firstly, the text is in a completely wrong place, and secondly, it's the wrong side. So we need the text to be inside of the path, facing left to right. So how do we fix it? How do we make those things work for us? Well, if you've got a keen eye, you'll see this little tiny circle at the beginning of the text string. Well, what we need to do is enter the text editing mode. So let's come over to the type layer and double left click. That makes the whole thing active. Now let's click inside the text somewhere, like so, anywhere will do. And now we can control or command drag this little circle representing the start of the text, and that will indeed create a new beginning point, which is now represented by a little cross. So let's move that just a little higher than the circle, which is now representing the end point, and release. So we can see clearly that the cross represents the start point, and the circle all the way around here represents the end of the text. And in this case, we're not filling most of the available space awaiting text. So just for housekeeping, let's drag the little circle all the way around the shape until we get somewhere near the actual end point and release. So we know how to place the text onto a path now, and we've learnt how to position it. The last thing we need to know is how to flip it over to the other side of the path. Well, we can do that once again by making sure the blinking insertion cursor is somewhere inside the text block, and then control or command dragging the cross icon over to the other side of the path. Simple as that, really. Then automatically that flips not only the position of the text but also the location of the cross and circle respectively. Now let's drag the end point all the way around so we're somewhere around the 3 o'clock mark. just like so. That's almost perfect. And remember, we need to control or command click as we work, otherwise we're not going to be able to select that point. Then we'll move the origin point of the text, as it's called, to the 9 o'clock position, somewhere around here. Finally, to space out the text in between the origin and destination points, we can come up to the options bar and change the alignment from left align to center align. And there we go. Now let's hit the green confirmation tick in the options bar to accept those changes, and there we have it. Text added to a path. Everything's looking perfect by my reckoning, and I'm going to add back the rings of the moon layer to complete the effect. Click the background layer to make sure that we can't see the path outline as we were doing just a few seconds ago, and we are done. I really hope you found this video helpful and that you've learnt something new. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.